All right, we're here. Welcome. We're glad you're joining us tonight. If you're joining us for the first time, as always, feel free to ask questions. And honestly, we really do encourage that. We want you to ask questions. That's why we're here. We're not just here to be another entertainment source or, I know, to be completely honest with you, I'm actually not the type of guy that's like entertained by podcasts. I don't actually watch podcasts for entertainment. I watch things that I'm interested in hearing about or learning about. And so for me, a podcast is automatically a learning forum. It's never like this, I want to listen to this famous guy talk about all his experiences and stuff. It's very rare that I will turn on a video and listen to something like that. So hopefully that's not your aim tonight, because more often than not, we're not an entertaining couple of people to listen to, although we do have our
I saw a guy
moments.
talking about entertaining. I saw a guy, he's doing a podcast, and he has, it's him and another guy, and he's like a really muscly guy with no t-shirt. He's just got his bare chest, and he's trying to talk about serious stuff, and it's like, dude, how do you, can't take you serious.
Do you have a big beard?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was wondering if I knew who he was.
No, he's actually fairly, I don't even think he had hair.
Oh, gosh.
But it was funny.
Why?
It was funny. It was like, how can you talk about serious stuff and be there, half dressed?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
See, now I'm interested. What is he talking about? Oh, man. Okay, so tonight the topic is, are you deep or shallow? This is actually something that Pastor Ford and I were talking about before last week's podcast. And, the idea of being a deep person has been rolling around in my head for a few weeks, actually. And mainly, for myself and, wanting to be a deep person, wanting to learn and be somebody who has some depth. And so we were talking about this last week, the importance of being a deep person. And I was thinking about how easy it is to be a shallow person. And so it's not like, this is something that just like comes naturally to humans. Some people are deep and their personalities lead them towards depth. But
I don't know about that.
Hold on. Or maybe their experiences lead them that direction, but they do have that desire.
Yeah.
And so they don't necessarily, but it's not like this is just something that, you wake up and you're like, I'm an adult today. I need to be deep. You know what I mean? It's clearly this is a proactive thing.
Yes.
You have to pursue.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about, different stories and different people. I came across the story of Viktor Frankl. I've read a couple of his books, and he writes a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And I actually looked up a bit more information about him just for this podcast and just trying to learn a bit more about Viktor Frankl. But interesting, he's a neurologist and psychologist before World War II and afterwards, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But he's arrested. He's thrown in these Nazi prison camps. He ends up in Auschwitz, which is one of the most notorious of all the prison camps. And so while he's there, obviously all of, whatever success he had was totally stripped away. All the outward comforts and freedoms that he had enjoyed prior to World War II were totally stripped away. And while he was there, he makes this observation about the people he's with. And he says that, in his words, he said, I realized that those who found a sense of purpose or meaning stood a better chance of survival. And what's interesting about this is because as I was looking into this a bit more, just to learn a bit about more about him, is that these ideas weren't new during the prison camp experience. He was actually a neurologist and psychologist at a hospital. I can't remember where it was. I think it was in Vienna, but he was the head of the suicide pavilion. So he's the guy that would work with, a lot of these guys people who had, either attempted suicide or were suicidal, and he's trying to work with them psychologically how to work through these things. And so as I was thinking about that in relation to our podcast, I was wondering in relation to his conclusions during World War II, it actually came out that these ideas of man's deep need for meaning came before he ended up in the prison camps. And so it's almost like when he went there, he had a bit more of an advantage from his perspective to look at the situation and say, how am I going to survive this? Mm-hmm. And so what he came to understand is that man's greatest need is not outward, but it's very, very deep and it's inward.
Yeah.
And so being deep is much more than just being successful in life. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even include outward success in life, as you can have all that stripped away and still have something deep that keeps you surviving when other people can't.
Yeah.
And so all that as an introduction. There's a scripture that I'll bring up in a little bit, but first, just to lay a foundation, to start right off the bat with some foundational questions, kind of laying the platform for this whole podcast, is how do you define a shallow person, and why does that even matter? Why does it matter to observe that and come to the right conclusion about yourself? I am a shallow or I'm a deep person.
Well, I'll go with the definition first because it came to me just as you were saying that. I was thinking about that whole idea of shallow versus deep, and you had mentioned about that there might be experiences or certain things that happen to people that cause them to be that way, and there's definitely a truth to that, but there has to be something pre-existing, I think, that before then, because I've always been a deep thinking person. I've never been a shallow thinking person. And what I mean by that is when I was in school, in grade school, I was tested, and became part of the what do you call it?
We've had this conversation
Mentally
before.
gifted minors was what it was called. Mentally gifted minors group. And the reason why was because I wasn't performing well in school. And so that's why they gave me the test, because they were pretty smart, from way back, that if kids weren't doing well in school, it wasn't always because they were stupid. It could be they were just bored, which was the case. I was in second grade. That's when I was actually tested. And came up to that. And I don't put a lot into that. It's not the idea of the difference between a genius and a normal person. It's not something like that as much as just somebody who is more cerebral, in their approach to life, just naturally more cerebral. So there is that element there. There is that thing there. And I do think there's some genetics associated with it. My dad was like that. I come from a family of engineers, technicians, and people like that. So they're electromechanical, technical engineer types in my past and in my family. So I think there's a genetic element there. But the issue, I think, more than that, is the understanding, I think, that people choose not to be deep. I don't think it's a thing of that people are either deep or they're not deep, or they're shallow. I think people choose shallow, and you mentioned it, and that was that's what triggered it in my thinking. Is it's easier. It's easier to be shallow. You can just go with the flow. And I was watching some of the latest information coming out with the whole the shooter and the Trump assassination, and some of the video footage were there accomplices, were there other people involved, and they had some shots in the of the video where people were responding what they would refer to it as kind of incorrectly. And so they were talking about the idea of how people generally are about things, that usually in a panic moment, one of the first things that happens is when you don't know what's going on, you immediately begin to reference off of everyone around you. It's just a natural fight or flight type response, is that if you detect that there's something wrong, but you don't know what's wrong, then you try to trigger off of whatever's close by you, which is, usually what other people are doing, looking at how is somebody else responding and things like that. And so the idea of being shallow, the idea of being shallow is the idea of taking the path of least resistance, I think. What comes natural to us, what comes easy to us. Because it's funny, I was talking to somebody the other day about this, that there are people that things that they're very good at, they are good at, they're naturally good at, and they are good at it, and they are willing to invest the time and energy in doing that thing because they're good at it naturally. But those same people, some people in that class of people, they actually have the potential to do even more things, but it doesn't come natural to them, so they won't do it. Because it means putting in effort and energy that might bring them to a place of their own limitations, and they don't want to see that. And so they'll go with what they're naturally gifted at, what they're naturally talented at. They'll do those things, and they'll put energy and effort into it because they don't need to put a lot of energy and effort into it because they know it's going to be successful because they are already somewhat successful in that arena. But they won't branch out from there, or they won't do other things. The one thing doesn't inspire them to want to do more things because of their own willingness to it's not so much a willingness as much as their own limitations that they put on themselves. I don't want to put the work into this because I may fail, or it may be hard, or I may have to accept the fact that there are things in life that I can't do. And so they won't even put the energy or effort into doing it, even if it's something they want to do. They'll try it for a few minutes, and then if it seems like it's something that's going to go easy for them, then they'll continue to do it. But if it's not easy for them, no, I'm not going to do it. I'll just stick with the things that I can do already. And that's shallow. That I think is a definition of shallow, is people who are unwilling to put the effort into going deeper, in life, becoming more, broadening their horizons they're just going to go down this narrow road. They don't want to venture off the tried and true paths that they already are confident work. And so, by the time they're 15 years old, they're done. It's over. They're going to be the same thing when they're 50. Because they're not going to try to develop anything else other than the things that they're already naturally good at. And that is, I think, a good definition of being shallow. And I think which was the thought that came to me is in talking about this, is that I think the test of that is in how you judge other people. And I think that will be the best indicator of whether or not you're shallow, because when you look at somebody and you are making an estimate of this person, if you're looking at, do I like them, don't I like them, then you're shallow. But if you're the kind of person that is able to look beyond their personality and the outward elements of their lives, and you're able to look beyond that to see what are their accomplishments, what have they been able to achieve, how do they think, what are, and listening to things, then I think you will be able to answer that. That's the test, I think. You'll be able to answer the question, am I shallow or am I deep? And it's funny because I had mentioned to you before the podcast of listening to it was like the conversation of the Titans. It was Jordan Peterson and Elon Musk talking together. Jordan Peterson is in fine form, way out there in la la land where people don't even go, and half the things that he says most people don't even really grasp, and. And he's talking to Elon Musk, and Elon Musk very patiently, very politely, and answering and responding back. They're on the same wavelength. And even, there was one joke that Elon Musk made that was like an intellectual joke. You'd have to know your history. He was talking about Memphis being the capital of Egypt, and there's a whole thing behind that. And then Jordan Peterson says to him, he says, I wish that was funny. And then he's going on for his question, and Elon Musk just laughs, and he goes, it is funny. And he was like, well, never mind, we're going to go on from there. But it wasn't something that probably the majority of the people in the audience would even understand, because it's historical. There are things you have to already understand about it before you could actually get the whole idea. And so, but but so here these guys are talking, and I thought about that, and I thought both of them have unique personalities, and that people would look at them and say they're weird, and that would be the end of it. They're weird. They're just weird people. They have weird personalities, and I just don't like them, and I don't want to have anything to do with them, and I don't care what they say, and I don't care if it's important. That's shallow. That's what I mean by shallow. But when you listen to them and you listen to their thinking and where they are and how they're processing the world around them, and how connected they are with trying to better humanity, because both of them, this is the core of both of them. What motivates both of them to do what they're doing is because in their minds they have recognized that they have some measure of gifting that can benefit humanity, and they're trying to capitalize on being able to make that available to other people. And so, but if you're shallow, you won't even go there. You won't look at it from that standpoint. You won't look at, okay, why does Elon Musk want to go to Mars? Why does Elon Musk so connected with this whole SpaceX and Tesla and X, and why is he doing all of these things? And if if you understood the thinking behind it, you'd realize they're very noble ambitions. These are not things that are just selfish, self-centered, little petty things. I have a lot of money and I'm just going to do things. It's not that kind of a thing. And then Jordan Peterson, same idea, is he really is trying to. Thousands of young men listen to Jordan Peterson, and I can assure you that of those thousands of men that are listening to Jordan Peterson, I bet every one of them would say, yes, he has a weird personality. He's not just your typical ordinary person, but what he says and how he thinks is well worth listening to and learning from.
Yeah.
And so I think that gives you a good definition. Not that if you're not an Elon Musk fan or not a Jordan Peterson fan, then you're shallow. That's not what I mean. I mean that to be able to look past the personality attributes and listen to what the individual's actually saying, and being able to separate the person from the message, and being able to listen to the message separately. That requires depth. But people who just, their whole focus in life is just listening to the person, they're not going to have depth. And they'll be the kind of person that I talked about, that they really won't put effort and energy into learning new things. It'll always be hovering around all of the things that they can already do and already achieve, that they have some measure of ability already, and they'll go back to those things, and they'll want to just keep redoing those same things over and over and over and over again in their lives, and maybe tweaking them just a little bit at different times to just to give the impression of expertise. But as far as depth goes, they're not willing to go this way. They're willing to go this way, but they're not willing to go this way. Mm-hmm. And that, I think that the test, like I said, is how do you assess people in your life? Is it just, which, I mean, it's funny because it's social media thinking, like, dislike, thumbs up, thumbs down. There's no more to it. Thumbs up, thumbs down. There's no in between, and that's, social media understands that the kind of
say they've obviously captured something that's very,
because they know that
prevalent.
shallow people are the people that are investing so much time and effort and energy into Instagram, because it's just like dislike, heart, thumbs down, whatever, and it's just quick scroll, move to the next thing, don't share, retweet, whatever it is, and just decisions, it's just decision after decision after decision after decision, with no real thought, no real depth, and no real care about thought or depth. And I've been doing a little bit of an experiment lately, because I'm trying to kind of get my head around social media. So I've literally been binging for the last almost 2 days in a row, watching TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, to try to get my mind around the idea, okay, what happens here? What is it that's driving people? So literally for hours, I've been binging on it to try to get myself into a position to where I can be a social media thinking person. And it's interesting how it goes like this. It just your intelligence just drains out of you. You're just, I was there last night and I'm looking, it's like 8 o'clock and I'm thinking I'm going to go get frozen yogurt. And I had been doing this for about 2 hours and I thought I want to go get frozen yogurt. And I thought, well, maybe in 15 minutes I'll get frozen yogurt. I never ended up going and getting frozen yogurt. I ended up just doing that until almost it was 10:30.
Yeah.
And so I just went to bed. And I was allowing this process to happen because I wanted to experience what it is to be caught up in social media because I want to get people out of social media. It's like and the gospel is the best rescuer from that because there's so little because the rescuer from social media is community. You're not going to get somebody out of social media
hold on.
until you get to community.
Don't go too far into that thought, but you can continue on. That's been my thinking is when in doing this is that because like I said I didn't grow up with social media. Yeah.
And so there literally was no phones. There was no internet. You had to go outside and play. I was almost done with a book called The Anxious Generation. Fantastic generation. I recommend every parent to read this book because it really is eye-opening. It's another book talking about social media, but it deals with it from not just from the standpoint of social media, as much as the standpoint of how social media keeps children from experiencing childhood. And so, because they just become shallow, and the idea of anxious and anxiety is because they don't have any ability to, interface with the world around them. But anyway, my point in that, and that whole idea is that community is really the only way out of being addicted, because social media makes you, it isolates you. And it's funny because I have been, as I've been thinking about it, as I thought, the number of people that I know, because I'm not policing everybody in our church, but I would be willing to bet that the majority of the people that struggle with church community, it's because they are social media addicts, and that is really the underlying. And their best friends are social media people. That is their best friends, and their relationship is in trading pictures, and liking each other's pictures and sending, 10-second videos to each other or making statements, in posts. And so it's an online existence. They don't have a real existence. There's no real relationship with those people. It's an online relationship. And because I was thinking about and just kind of processing this in my life of various things that have happened over the years that I think, in my mind, these are decisions that say, I don't care about the church or the people in the church, but yet for some people that doesn't seem to bother them. When people leave the church, for example, it doesn't seem to bother them that people leave the church. They go on and they still have relationships with them. And I was thinking about this, and I think, I'm quite confident that that's really the issue, because it isn't. Their relationship isn't based on reality. It's not based on this three-dimensional world. It's based on the two-dimensional screen and tweets and chats and posts and reels and these kinds of things. To them, that is the expression of relationship, and I thought, that's so tragic, that people can be there, because that's not relationship, that's not relationship at all. In fact, it's the opposite of relationship. It's like almost, it's like a step above having an imaginary friend. because they're not really there. Because the truth is the posts and the reels and the things that are being said are always putting their fake foot forward, not their real foot forward. It's always the fake foot. It's the airbrushed, it's the filters, and not just the body filters, but the filters in general. And so I think I think that the idea of and again, it's the path of least resistance, and that's why I think you have this why being shallow is so attractive, and correspondingly why there's so much judgment based on aesthetics, the outward, and that's why crazy, like I said, the guy with the no t-shirt, that's what makes people popular. You wouldn't, if he was out, so if he was out in public, like in a mall or something, and he didn't have his shirt on, and he was talking the way that he talks in the podcast, people would avoid him because he's crazy. But online, crazy is normal. It's the new normal. And so that's where a lot of people live, is they live this life of being really nothing in real life. They're not anything, but online they're something. And that's where they exist. Their life exists online, not offline.
So we have a good question here, and we're and then. Sorry, let me ask this question first because it's on the topic of social media. And so, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask these questions in reverse, but is it really social media that's responsible for society's lack of genuine relationships, or is society at fault for not using self-control, or a combination of both?
Well, this is always the big question, and it is an unfair question. Generally speaking, what I mean by that is because social media is it's let me see if I can bring the full thought out. Social media is a human experiment. Okay, it's like, so like, for example, when they run, like, laboratory, and not so much laboratory tests, I'm trying to think of the other word that I really want, but like when they're running
Social experiments.
Experiments in general, but social experiments, and they'll get a group of people, and this group of people is at an unfair disadvantage because they really don't know why they're there. They tell them why they're there, but they're lying. It's not why they're there. But they can't tell them exactly why they're there, because that's part of the experiment.
Right.
And so they're there, and they're thinking this is why they're here, because of this particular reason. So they've got it focused in their mind. I'm here for this reason, but they're not there for that reason. And many times these experiments will be one person is the only person that doesn't know everything that's going on, and everybody else is in on what's happening. And so the reason why I'm saying it this way is because that is what social media is. So social media this is what it is. Okay? This is our goal. This is what we want you to believe about social media. But that's not what it really is. Because what it really is it's a team, literally an army of psychologists. I would call them unethical psychologists and technicians, and all collaborating, and developers, all collaborating together to, which this book brings this out, is that the lie is that you are a customer. So like TikTok and Instagram and those, you are a customer. So they're trying to create this environment so that you will be a part of it because they want you to be a customer. But the truth is, you are the product. You are what they are selling. That's why it's free to you, because they're selling it to somebody else. And what they're selling is they're selling data to sales outfits, so that they can sell stuff. And so what you're looking at when it comes to social media is a never-ending advertisement. That's what it is. It's a never-ending advertisement. But here's the interesting thing about it when you start thinking about it from the right perspective, is that if you get really into social media, then you start posting things so that other people will look at those things. And so now you're working for the social media company by producing content for them,
Right.
for free. Right?
Right.
When you just do your, so your common person, they're in the bathroom taking their classic, selfie pictures in the bathroom, and people like those bathroom pictures, and the social media algorithms are going, oh, that's cool. That's okay. So there's another person who likes these bathroom selfie type things, and that kind of person, we can hit them with this kind of advertising. And so you're actually helping them to promote their real product, which is an environment where people come. It's like having think about it. It's like having a store that has nothing in it, but they get everybody to go to that store and then ask what they want in that store, and then they start giving those things away. But they're giving those things away because the advertisers, who are the customers, are paying. Right? And so that's why I say it's an unfair question, is because they are capitalizing on what they intimately understand about human personality. And so, but the problem is that you don't. You don't understand your own personality. And this is the thing that's, to me, is very, very scary as a pastor, is it's almost, I would call it epidemic, that people, they don't really know who they are. They really don't have any idea who they are. But the social media companies know who they are because they're watching their behavior. So they tell you, you're scrolling along and you pause on anything. They take note of that. You paused on that. So this is obviously something that's captured your interest, whether consciously or subconsciously. So they know more about you than you know about yourself, because they are observing you. They are watching you. They're watching every move that you make on your phone, and they're capitalizing on that, and they're building a bio of who you are based on that. And so I think, it's kind of a long answer to the question that no, it is absolutely conditioning by social media. It's absolutely 100% by appealing to all the base, simple, functionality of a person, of a human being. They are able to get to the core of that's why I say, so after 2 or 3 hours of me binging on social media, it's changing who I am as a person. Mm-hmm. It's rewiring my thinking, even though it's only temporary. It's rewiring my thinking. It was to the point to where I thought, I am not going to look at any kind of YouTube or any kind of social media whatsoever for the next 2 or 3 days. Because I decided, experiment over. Now I need to rewire my brain back. Because it was already, even before the the podcast, 10 minutes before the podcast, I'm thinking, what am I going to do for 10 minutes? And I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking I could look on something on social media. My patience level is gone, and it's like I can, and that's after only that's 2 days for about 3, I would say probably 3 or 4 hours for each day of doing that on purpose. And so yeah, absolutely, this is not weak-minded people succumbing to silliness. Yeah. This is an actual targeted, premeditated addiction created, by this. It's the funny thing is this book I was telling you about about kids, is that many teenagers, the last thing they do before they go to sleep, not necessarily go to bed, but the last thing they do before they go to sleep, check their social media. The first thing they do when they wake up in the morning, check their social media. What was the last thing I did at 20 years old? Get high. What was the first thing I did when I woke up in the morning? Get high. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's a psychological addiction.
Yeah.
And they know that. Social media companies know that. Now, I'm not social media companies are evil. The issue isn't are they evil or not evil. They are atheist.
Yeah.
All companies are atheists. There's
Yeah.
there may be, like 0.01% of companies might actually be Christian, and have some sort of morality to them, but the vast majority of companies are atheist. They're not moralistic, and they don't think on those levels. So it's not like they don't care about the health of children or people that's being affected by their social media. It's if we don't do it, somebody else will.
Yeah.
And so they're not looking at it from the standpoint of, well, we need to take this moral high ground. It's like, no, we need to make money. That's what we need to do. We need to make money, and if we're not going to make the money, other people are going to make the money. So we might as well make the money. And then if we're the ones making all the money, we have some control over the content, and we can make it moral. They're addicted, but they're addicted to our moral, quote, moral content, rather than being addicted to somebody else's maybe questionable content. But the idea of an addiction altogether never really enters into the conversation, because they don't care about the addiction part of it. They're not going to do that, and that's why you have many of the higher ups in the social media environment. I didn't really mean to go down this direction. It just kind of
I'm actually,
shallow and deep. It really does come along these lines.
I was going to say, it's interesting. It seems like we're only scratching the surface of the topic.
Yeah.
And clearly there's a lot more to talk about.
But there is, because there's a lot of these. So the funny thing is a lot of these social media companies, because they're all Silicon Valley. There's actually a school that they send their kids to. A lot of them. Mm-hmm. And guess what? The school is a private school. Guess what they do in the private school? Take
the phones away.
Ban phones. They're not allowed to bring phones to school.
Yeah.
So what do they know? I mean, they know this is not healthy. And when you've grown up with that, and now you're an adult having grown up with the social media addiction, it just becomes a part of who you are. And so now you have no real genuine personality. And like I said, I see it in people when they come into the church. I see it as people that they've come for a little while, and now they have to decide, do I want to let people know who I really am? And I think the question comes out is, who am I? Who am I really? For a lot of people. But the interesting thing is it's more girls than guys that go through this. Because guys are not that into social media, not like girls are. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different thing, because girls are so much more connected, that way, as far as, seeing people, what they're having, what's, two people, a guy and a girl can see an accident, and, the girl's going to remember the dress, the shoes that were worn, the hairstyle, whether or not there was.
Well, never mind.
But the guy will be. I think it was a guy and a girl. But maybe, she might have had brown hair. But where the woman is, oh no, her hair was frosted, and I could tell she actually had bangs as well. I mean, they pick up on all that stuff. They're much more pay attention to that kind of stuff, because they're much more visually oriented like that. And so, and this is what's coming out now is you have all these, dysfunction that's happening in younger girls today. Anxiety and depression and things like that are becoming more and more and more common.
Yeah.
And the reason is because they're caught up in this whole idea of, the trying to fit into the social media world.
Yeah. So I want to get to this question, and I mean, to be fair, for a second there, I actually felt bad about not answering bringing this question up right away when it was asked. But to be fair to the person who asked it, this is the type of question you ask at the end of a podcast with this topic. So I'm going to ask it mainly for time's sake. We're at 7:39, and I'll ask it. And I wanted to actually, because as I was thinking about this topic in general, I was like, there's so many subjects you could talk about individually when it comes to being deep or shallow, and to try and get like a full idea to just like make a general statement. Here's how you're shallow. Here's how you're deep.
Yeah.
Go apply that to life.
Well, which I could do.
You could. I know.
Because,
you could.
Because deep, it's not so much deep as wide. It's the idea of being more broad spectrum.
Yeah.
You're not binary in your thinking. It's not like dislike. Those kinds of things. Where shallow, everything's binary. It's this way or it's that way. And you hear this when you listen to interviews with different people, especially in different grades. High school, college. Older people, you see, is that a lot of the more, high school, college age people, everything is a switch. It's either on or it's off. Do you think, there was a guy asking the question in these binges that I've been looking at, a woman asked the question, do you believe democracy is a fundamental element of being American? And his answer was no. And so she was all up in arms, and he said, stop. He said, hang on for a sec. Is the word democracy mentioned in any of our founding documents? And it's not. Mm-hmm. Because the idea of democracy has not been the focus. The focus is not democracy. The focus is on equity. It's not, everybody needs to be able to give their voice on a thing. Everybody needs an opportunity in life in general. But he brings this stuff out, and, there would be people, though, that would hear that and say, no, because the key word, democracy, no, democracy. I've heard that word a lot. It's obviously important. And that's the end of it. Not what do the founding fathers, what did they think? What was the original idea, of over the years, for our country and the development of our thinking in our country and things like that. And so it's like you can't. No, I'm sorry, I can't even give this a moment of time, because I have heard the word democracy a lot. And so it's obviously important, because if it wasn't important, I wouldn't hear it all the time. Right. And that's shallow. Yeah. That's a shallow way of thinking, because you're not actually trying to think outside of your little box. You're thinking, all of your thinking has to fit into all the little boxes that you have in your life. You're not willing to actually look and see, is there any other boxes? Is there any other ways of looking at things? And so that really is the difference. Is, are you like this or are you like this? Does everything have to be a switch, or can everything have some broad, some depth to it, some breadth to it?
So we talked about in the beginning that
you've never asked the question, by the way.
No. Yeah. So, but we did actually talk about. So like I said, we're obviously touching on a deep subject.
Yeah.
That didn't mean any pun by that. But the idea that we're only scratching the surface only just opens up more conversation about it. So but the question just plainly is, and we talked about this being a proactive effort in the beginning, is how do you become a deep thinker? Or, we can just ask it, how do you become more natural? And the context is, if it isn't natural. The question is, how do you become a deep thinker?
But you said natural? That question isn't a question that should be asked now. It should be asked at the end.
No, I'm because it was asked by one of the viewers. So I'm asking it just to put it in, and we're at 7:43, so we'll ask it now.
But it's quite relevant to what we're talking about. I don't see I mean, it's right in the middle of what we're talking about.
I know, but it's a conclusion. That's what I'm saying. It's like a conclusive.
Well, they don't have to wait till the end.
Fair enough.
Tell me now. I want to know right now. Give me the answer. Okay, I understand the problem, but what's the answer? Give it to me right now. That
impatience comes from looking at social medias too much.
Yes. Come on. Let's get to
right now.
Well, and the funny thing is that that was TV did that. TV, it was a half an hour. Well, now it's like minutes.
Yeah.
And so but TV took us from working things out for hours and hours and hours, because movies would be 3-4 hours, right? And then TV came along, and then everything kind of shrunk to around an hour-ish. And then a lot of the content became like half-hour shows, and so everything was wrapped up in the last 10 minutes of the show, and so that's the thing. But this is where all media has been going for a long time, and so how do you get to be a deep thinker? I'll tell you, there's only one way to do it, and that is you have to read. You have to. If you're not going to read, you're never going to be deep. You're never going to get out of that, because if you're not reading, because this is the problem, is that all of your all of your input in your life is sound bites, and so it wires your brain. And like I said, so these binges that I've gone on for the last couple of days, I can't sit still for 15 minutes and ponder something. I want something to satiate my need for instant gratification in that empty space, and and so it's a thing of, okay, I'm here, I'm at this end. Whereas it could be something where I could just, roll around thoughts in my mind, maybe make notes to myself about a future thing, or like I often do as being a preacher, is I'm always writing down sermons, ideas and inspirations for sermons. But so you have to learn how to be patient. I mean, that's the main thing, and because the time element is the key. That's again why I say this about social media, is it's unfair, is because social media, it steals your time from you 5 seconds or maybe even less, 2 or 3 seconds at a time. It's stealing away your time. It takes 3 seconds and another 3 seconds and another 3 seconds and another 3 seconds. And it may be a little bit longer than that. Maybe you could say 5 seconds or maybe even 10 seconds as you're scrolling through things, but it's taking that away, and it's like you want to, and that's the thing I thought was funny about thinking about going to get frozen yogurt, is it'd still be there when I got back. But the issue was I was in this mode of what's next, and I was just rolling what's next. And that's why social media is endless scrolling. You don't ever get to the bottom of the scrolling. You do get to, I did notice one thing. You get to the bottom of the scrolling if you don't have an account. And the reason
to get the full version.
Get the account so they can start taking data from you. Because now you have an account. Every time you log on, or every time you get on, they're able to start taking data from you. But when you don't have an account, that data is sort of random data. They can take it a little bit from your IP address and other fingerprinting that you can do on a device. But anyway, that's irrelevant. But the idea is that they want to take you little by little by little. And so patience really is the big thing. To become deep is absolutely, it requires patience, because good things come to those who wait. It's an old saying, but there's a truth in that. Is the idea that when you are wrestling through something, it's going to take time. And that's why I said about people developing a skill that you're not presently, that you don't presently have as a skill. Like if I wanted to learn, and which, see if I can think of something recently that I've wanted to learn about and had to take the time. Can't really think of anything off the top of my head that has been
Social
separate.
media.
Social media. Well, that's the opposite, because that's a.
But it took your time.
That's well, it took a lot of my. Yeah, no, okay, yeah. So fair enough. There is a truth there, that it took a lot of time. Wanting to understand social media, I had to apply time to it to get it. I couldn't. If I would have been if I would have gone on to like I went on for the first time, I went on TikTok, and I went on TikTok for probably about, I'd say, half an hour, maybe a little bit longer than half an hour. It wasn't like I was trying to limit myself. It's just that I kept getting to the end of the thing because I wasn't getting an account. So I'm just doing okay, let's see what this is like. And then I'd have to close out the browser because I didn't download the app because I don't want the app either. So, and then I open it back up again, scroll. And then I was seeing the same things over and over and over again, because it's like they give you this little, teaser to get you hooked. And so, I'm doing that. But if I would have just done that for like a minute or two, I would have been the classic old person. Oh, kids, what do they find in this stupid, TikTok garbage. Who cares? This is all just shallow, stupid stuff. Well, until you actually start getting into it, and then you start becoming part of the ecosystem, and then it starts giving you what you want, and then all of a sudden you're getting the dopamine from it, because now you're all of a sudden, everything that you look at, you want to look at, and so now you're watching stuff and they say, oh, this is really good, I'd like to see more of this, I hope they will give me more, and that has happened because I was using the church Instagram account, which was, I didn't really have the forethought at that time. And so now the church Instagram account is like, inundated with stuff, which isn't too terribly bad, because I want to, I want that kind of stuff coming into our Instagram account. Hopefully we can do something to help people, like I said in the beginning, to be able to understand that the church community is way, way, way better than just, living in the ether. But anyway, so so there's time that has to be involved in that to actually capture the essence of what it is. You can't just dabble for a few minutes and then walk away and think, I'm going to become a deep person now. You have to stick to it. And I wish I could think of something that is more profitable.
Your wife put making sushi on the.
Okay, all right. So yeah, but I haven't done it yet. But yeah, we wanted to learn how to make sushi, because I like sushi and sushi is expensive. And I thought, what if we learned how to make our own sushi? And I just happened to have an opportunity to be able to go to get some fish. A friend of mine went fishing and he had leftover fish and said, "You want me to send it to you?" And I thought, oh, this is a perfect opportunity, is that I can have him send me this fish. I'll pay the shipping on it. It won't be as expensive. And then I can try my hand at sushi, and so my wife buys a little sushi kit, but I don't know how to use a sushi kit. So I go online, I'm looking things up. I'm going on ChatGPT. I'm going at different places to try to find out information. What is sushi grade fish, because the one thing I do know is that if you get bad fish that's raw, you'll get sick, and I don't want to get sick. And so it's like, okay, so what's the right way to do this? And so certain things at certain temperatures, all this kind of stuff. So I'm looking all this stuff up and getting to know all this stuff, but there's stuff that's involved in it. And then there's technique for actually making the actual sushi rolls themselves, how to use the tools, because the tools are all there, and I could just, I'm just going to, so watching and how to cut, all those kinds of things. Stuff takes time. Even something as simple, which it really is simple. Now that I have done a lot of the research already, it is simple, to make sushi. But if you want to, become deep, in other words, that you actually know things. If there are people, and I know I harp on this because it's such a for me it's so shallow. It's a shallow way of looking deep to other shallow people. It's a Lord of the Flies thing, and that is to just go online and just look stuff up and get little sound bites. Go to what is you get this curious idea in your mind, and so you think, oh, what does such and such? How does this work or whatever? You go to one website, you get a breakdown of how the thing works, and now you're a veteran expert. And so anybody brings that subject up. Oh yeah, well, do you know that? And you don't know that.
Yeah.
You've read one website. This is not your forte. It's not something that you have any expertise in. But if you want to know a thing, you have to give it the time, and actually have the experience at doing it. So even though I know, about sushi stuff, I haven't done it yet. So, no, you're doing that wrong. I'm not going to do that, because I've never done it. No, the video I saw, but once you've done it, then you can kind of get a feel if somebody does it slightly differently, that's still the same, because you've done it, you have experience at it, you have some expertise at it. And so it's that's depth. Yeah. That's how you get depth. And input from deep thinking people, that's, again, so not just reading, because you could read, Dr. Seuss, and you're not going to really become very deep. But there are, reading books by thinkers. There's tons. I mean, I could sit here all night and talk about all kinds of, deep thinking people, and they're people worth, listening to, and worth, usually, I would say they've probably been dead for 100 years. Most of the people worth listening to. And going back and what did they write? What did they say? Especially, written books, because they're so the person writing them is wanting to leave some kind of legacy behind. It's a when you're a deep thinking person, one of the byproducts of that, which is another test that would be good, is when you're a deep thinking person, one of the byproducts of that is you start seeing knowledge as a tool, and you want to share that. You want to teach other people how to use those tools. And so there's a very powerful, and I'm not just talking about watching YouTube videos and, like I said, doing this, sound biting and all that, but really get into the mind and the thinking and learning how to think that way. That's why, I absolutely love not listening to audiobooks and for hours and hours and hours, and being able to listen to somebody elaborate on something that they have some expertise in, because I get the benefit of hanging out. And so a friend of mine put it this way, which I thought was really, really a great way of saying it, is being able to hang out with somebody who is who has who's interesting, to listen to, and then you become interesting to listen to. It's one of the things I've mentioned on the podcast before, of the idea of, when I was younger, being in conversations with I'm a disciple in the church, but I'd be hanging around. I'd get these opportunities to hang around with pastors, and then these pastors would be talking about different things, and I'd think, I'm out. I'm just going to sit here like an idiot, because I have nothing to contribute to this conversation, because I don't know what they're talking about. I just don't know, and I feel like an idiot, and it's like, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be, a groupie for intelligent people. I want to be able to contribute, and so I had to learn how to do that. And reading is the doorway. It opens up the doorway for you to become knowledgeable of things. And again, like I said, not just stupid soundbiting stuff, because that's the other embarrassing thing. So you're sitting down with a bunch of people, that are professional photographers, as an example. Professional photographers, they're talking about lighting, they're talking about camera settings and things like that, and so you saw YouTube on how to set lighting for a podcast, and you think you know something, but you've never done it. You don't even, you say, why are you doing that? All you need to do is you just need to put up the 3-point lighting. You don't need to do anything else. It's like, you don't know that. You heard that, and what you don't understand is that's in a particular room, in a particular scenario, with a particular set of circumstances that isn't going to apply right across the board, to every single circumstance. And so you're going to go correct these people, with stuff you don't even know what you're talking about. And so that's why, learning and understanding and getting to know things, and then you can listen in on the conversations with experts about things without having to throw your 2 cents in. You can just listen and go, oh, that's amazing. But you can ask questions, and your questions are intelligent, because your questions are not based on the fact that you haven't a clue about what's being talked about. It's, oh yeah, I was reading that the other day, but it was talking about this or that or the other thing. And so why this? Why is it so good to have a high-speed shutter in this particular scenario versus other scenarios? And you can actually get expertise, that filters in.
Yeah.
And now you're becoming deep, because you don't have to just jump in with your little 2 bits of information that you listen to in a 30-second, podcast, soundbite from a podcast. You're gonna start becoming a deep person because you're thinking. You're listening, you're thinking. It's not you're not just waiting for your turn to talk. You've turned it around the other way. A deep thinking person. This is the thing I thought was interesting of listening to Jordan Peterson and Elon Musk together. Now, Jordan Peterson is interviewing Elon Musk, but what was interesting is there were several people that were complaining. They were like, ask him the question and let him answer it. Just shut up and let him answer it. But that wasn't the idea of the podcast. The podcast wasn't, Jordan Peterson wanting to get this great thinker on and let him just expound on whatever he felt like talking about. He was trying to cover certain ground. He wanted to know things. He wanted to, in the terms of this kind of thing, he wanted to unpack things about Elon Musk. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why did you do the other thing? So Elon Musk is talking about this, and he's like, okay, but this is, let's focus on that. I want you to tell me about this because these are the things I want to unpack about you. I want to know these things. I want to bring these things out to the surface. Yes, there may be a lot of things, but because you only have a time, you have a timeline, especially people like Elon Musk, is you're not, look, let's just sit here for like a week, we'll just go get dinner, breakfast, lunch, and we'll just hang out for a week. And so you're not going to do that. You've got, maybe a window of a couple of hours. And so you've got to capitalize on moving the conversation in the direction you want to go so that you can bring out the things that you want to bring out so that you can talk about the things that you're talking about. And so the way he was asking the questions was to get Elon Musk to talk about the things that were valuable that he wanted to learn about Elon Musk, and putting that together in a podcast, so that other people can benefit from this as well. It wasn't just, to have, a multi-billionaire talk. I'm so lucky that I have a podcast and I got an opportunity to have a multi-billionaire come on. So you have the con, you just say whatever you feel like saying. And no, that's not the point of it. The point is to learn, and so you have to, if you're going to have any depth to you ever in your life, you're going to have patience. And the way that you build patience is by reading, because it may take you 9 or 10 hours to finish a book, and so you're going to have the patience to make your way all the way through the explanation, of a person's thinking. And unless you just want to be an arrogant, little pig, you can just soundbite everybody. And just, play your arrogant little game where you just soundbite everybody and you throw in your opinions. And this guy's an idiot because he doesn't believe this or he doesn't think that way because you don't, not because it's the wisdom of the universe, just because you don't.
So 2 more questions actually 3 more questions here. And 2 of them are related specifically to social media, but, sorry, I missed my spot here. Even though scrolling through social media was an experiment, what about it had your attention for so long, or for such a long time?
No. See, this is the thing: is that it wasn't that something had my attention. It was that social media understands how to capture the attention of a human being. It's not this thing captured my attention. This thing knows how to capture attention. And it's very, very different. You have to understand that it's very, very different. If you are somebody who doesn't have social media, I recommend you do this very judiciously, but try it. Sit down and, do what I did. This I can give this to you. So actually, an easy way of doing this is go on YouTube and just watch a bunch of shorts, one after another. Because it's the same thing. TikTok and shorts and reels are very, very similar. Instagram reels, they're all very, very similar. You just keep going and then things start happening. You stop on one and then all of a sudden it comes alive and starts saying stuff to you, which is the other thing. That's one of the other things is the automatic play. Yeah. Which I can't stand on websites. When I go to websites that have automatic play and I can't turn it off, I don't ever go to the website anymore. But social media, that is what it is. It's not, there's no turning. I mean, you can turn off the sound, It doesn't give you the sound so that you can scroll right past it if you don't want to watch it. So, they're not rude, and that's on purpose because they don't want to be rude to you. And so it knows how to capture attention. So the issue is not what was it about the social media that captured your attention? It's that social media captures attention by definition.
Yeah.
So it's very different, and it's not a thing of smart versus stupid. This is not a battle of wits between social media and the intellect of a human being. It's not. There's no. This is not a game. This is not it's not like chess. You're outmanned. You're just from the beginning, you're outmanned because this thing has been designed in such a way to capture the attention of every human being. And so that's what's important to understand.
So what about the things on social media that are beneficial? News, recipes, events, happenings in the city, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, when it comes to TikTok, shorts, and reels, that's not, and I can talk now as an expert. 2 solid days of watching this stuff. That's not news. That's not recipes. That's not whatever. This is stuff that is thrown at you because you like it. And it's not that it's beneficial. It's what you like, okay? And so I'm not saying it's not cool, because there are things, like particularly a lot of the stuff that I saw on Instagram, it was cool stuff. It's like watching Chive TV. If you've ever watched Chive TV is the exact same thing. So Chive TV is the success failures. People doing horrible failures, one after another, after another, after another, after another.
Oh,
yeah,
like the one that Applebee's.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm referring to because we were at Applebee's just the other night. Sadly, Applebee's is closing. We found that as well.
So sad.
It's like
So
no place to go late night. But anyway,
there's always In-N-Out Burger.
Oh, that's not the place to go at late night. It's not even comfortable. But anyway, the you watch one and you watch another and you watch another, and it's not if you sit down in front of Chive TV, I don't care who you are, you're gonna watch it.
Yep.
You are gonna watch it. I don't care, and they know you're gonna watch it because they know how to capture your attention. Watching people hurt themselves. There's something in us that we like watching that again and again and again. I was watching it and I looked over at because I was with Elliot and Stephanie, and I said, I can feel it. I'm not just watching. I can feel it when somebody turns around and they smack their face into something. My head goes. It's like whoa. It's like what's the? It's like virtual reality.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's what it's like. And then watching people do cool stuff and it's like inside it's so cool. That they did that and stuff like that. It's all dopamine.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it about beneficial. That's not where you go if you want to understand what's going on in the world. That's not where you go, okay? Because it is only a very, very small subset of the world because it's focused specifically on you and what you like. So if you're a Democrat, you're going to get all kinds of anti-Trump stuff. If you're a Republican, you're going to get all kinds of anti-Biden or now Kamala. And it's because it's a dopamine thing.
Yeah.
They don't care about what it is. And they're going to show you, this and that and the other thing and the other thing and this thing happened and that thing happened and and do you really need to know about the murder in Sweden? It's like, that's, I need to know about that murder in Sweden. Well, the problem is that like in America, there's a lot of murders in Sweden, but it's the kind of murder that you like. You like these kinds of murders, so they're going to feed you these kinds of murders. Yeah. And that's the thing that people are not really twigging to is the idea of this is not some objective, neutral, thing that's just wanting to bring you in the know of what's going on in the world. No, you're the product. They need to keep your attention, and so they're going to tell you there's lots of news going on. There is lots of news. You want to. I mean, we used to give statistics about how every so many seconds somebody dies. Well, that's not changed. It's just that now you could actually sit there and watch those people die. On social media. Because they'll be there's enough deaths going on to keep you going for the rest of your life. And that's not healthy. There's nothing beneficial about that, because you're not getting a picture of what's going on in the world. You are getting dopamine hits, and you're getting a picture of the world that, man, the world is exactly like what I think it is. Isn't that amazing how that happened? That the world is really how you think the world is. No. Number one, the world is not how you think it is, not by any stretch of the imagination. Number two, the world for you is just what's going on inside your little brain. It's not really a reflection of the world. It's a reflection of your likes, and appetites.
Yeah.
And so it's very important to understand that's not, social media is not about that. And, that doesn't mean that you can't throw stuff out there. There is, things come up, on social media that don't necessarily come up on regular news. But you're not going to see it if it's not in your sort of like box.
Yeah.
It'll never come up you'll never be notified that these things are going on, because you live over here in this little bubble.
Yeah.
And so you're never going to see those things. And somebody else may tell you about those things. And then you may be able to get those things to come inside of your bubble. But if you're, like I said, if you're an echo chamber type person and you're shallow, then you're just going to be, that bubble is just going to become more and more and more defined as time goes on. And so that's an important thing to understand about social media. And so, okay, you can go on there, but this is a funny thing is you don't go on social media to get a recipe. You go on social media hoping that a recipe will get you. Right? That's what happens.
You want to be enticed by a recipe.
Yeah, you're there, and you have these, things that you're following, because you're hoping that there's a recipe that's going to come and get you.
Yeah.
You're not, I always wanted to make, Toll House chocolate chip cookies. Let me go on social media and see if I can find that. Try that. Try it. I defy you. Try it. Go out there with the intention of getting on social media to find how to make the original recipe Toll House cookies. And I'll tell you, I will go online and I will go on Google, and it'll take me seconds to find it. You will be on there forever trying to find somebody who's actually made the original Toll House recipe cookies. Not that they're not out there, and not that you won't find them. It's just that that's not how it functions. It's not a place where you go to find things that you're looking for. You go there so that things can find you. And so you're not keeping up on things. And it gives you the false impression that you're actually building this depth where you're really not, because 99% of what you're going to see on social media is never going to leave the visual world. It's never going to become part of your real world. You're not going to go, that's really, I'm going to write that down. And that down and this down, man, all the things that I've made because I've been on social media. No, no, it's just not how it works. You may make, the influence of the things that you see on social media, I'd say probably in the neighborhood of maybe 1 to 5%, if that.
Okay. So last question. Is there a difference between listening to a book and physically reading one?
There is. I am guilty of being impatient. And so I've had to compromise by listening to books. And this book, which is interesting, is the guy's talking about, if you want to get out of the social media world and all that. He mentions, he actually kind of insinuates that books, audio books could be thrown into that category. I don't agree with that. And he didn't come right out and say it. He just talked about in his own self that he will get, like, for example, he goes out into, this is where him and I go different directions. His idea of rehabilitation is to go out into nature with a book. You know what? Put a drill in my eye. I would much rather have that, because nothing is less appealing to me than to have a book in nature and have my senses inundated with so many nothings all at the same time. It's like, nah, headphones, I'll close my eyes. I can be outside. I like the warmth. I like the fresh air. I like those kinds of things, but there's nothing in me that likes trees or birds or any of those kinds of things. That's just me. That's just me. And so for me, when it comes to books versus audio, I prefer audio because I am an information junkie. I love learning, things. And so, and it can be done. So I'm getting a book. If I'm reading the book, I can read the book fairly well. It's not that I can't read. It's that I'm not comfortable giving 100% effort into anything at one time, of just having well, I lie. That's not completely true, because I can do that with coding. I can code. I can be 100% engrossed in it. But when it comes to reading, I'm not. I don't want to be eyes, ears, mind, everything absorbed into the book.
Isn't that kind of the point?
Yes. I'm processing this as I'm saying this, because the truth of the matter is probably I have to be fair and say that would be beneficial to do that. It would be beneficial. I don't want to. Okay.
This topic is totally going to go on more than one podcast. I'm just saying.
But the reason why I'm saying that is knowing my own limitations. Okay, yeah. Understanding my own limitations, and that I used to read books like that. I used to, and it just was grueling to me. When I discovered, because I've grown up through these phases. Okay, and so for me, the move from reading paperback books, which I did do, to audio books. I could get through way more audio books, and my retention was comparable. It wasn't like I just forget everything. In fact, a friend of mine had asked me about a particular book, and I thought, I read that book. I don't remember anything about that book. So I pulled it out of my audio books, and I thought, maybe there is something to this. And then I began to listen to the audiobook, and I remembered why I didn't like the book. That was the issue. The issue is I just plain didn't like the book. It's not, I would have forgotten it had I read it, page by page, because I just wasn't into the book.
Right.
The book, the title of the book was great, and I won't throw it out there because I don't want to mess with people that might read it. But it was like I read it. It's like the title was what captured my attention. I start listening to it, and I remembered verbatim as soon as I started to listen to it his opening thing about it. But then, after I read through the rest of the book, it was all illustrations. I mean, it was like 90% illustrations, which isn't a bad way of writing, but it was 90% illustrations. It's like, dude, this is all illustrations, I mean, this is like, it was, so it turned into an encyclopedia. It was more like an encyclopedia than a book to read, and so it was like, it's like, it was like sound biting, it was like a million sound bites all compiled into a book without really making a point. So it was like all over the place. And it's like, that's why I didn't remember it, because the book wasn't about a thing. The book was more about a million things. And that's why I didn't remember it, because it's one of the few books that I've read that had that kind of a thing to it. So my point in that is just the idea of comprehension, because some people, you'll comprehend way more if you have the paper and you do this and you do that. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that it's even necessary to have that level of comprehension. That's my point, is that do you really need to have that level of comprehension, especially if you're reading a bunch of biographies about people?
Yeah.
You're learning things, it's developing you, it's making you want to be that kind of person, and you're taking all the tools away from it. You've got tools in your toolkit, but do you remember what the label says on the tool? Probably not, but who cares? You know how to use the tool, and that's really what matters. And so if that means that book is only 30% comprehension, that 30% is valuable to you, great. And if you're buzzing through a bunch of books like that, and you're only getting 30% comprehension, overall, I think you're doing better than having a few books at a slow pace where you're only getting a little bit of comprehension. But the question really has to do a lot, I think, with your own concentration level.
Mm-hmm.
You have to determine your own concentration level when it's the difference between an audio book and a paper book. What's your concentration? If you're the kind of person that squirrel, then you might need a book. You might need a book. Otherwise, you're going to go, I've been sitting here for 15 minutes and I've been way out there and I don't even know what was going on in the audiobook. If you can't maintain. So you have to know your own limitations,
Yeah.
I think, is the most important.
Very cool. Well, we'll stop there. That this has been a really cool topic, and there's so much more to talk about, and so this is definitely going to work its way into another podcast or two. But literally, we could apply this. We could just look at the practical applications of becoming deep in so many different areas. I was reading about emotional depth, which is a very interesting subject. Relationships. You mentioned, the idea of community. What about individual relationships? And talking about knowledge. What is the right kind of knowledge to pursue? How do you become a deep person just by reading whatever book you find on the shelf? Obviously, there has to be some kind of aim behind it. And then, ultimately, and this will probably, work its way peppered throughout, whatever we talk about in the next couple podcasts. But, depth when it comes to God. And a relationship with God, and that whole idea of having a deep relationship with God, which is originally what inspired this whole thing. And so, having a deep, more than just a deep knowledge, but
yeah, and I will say in relationship to that, I think the idea, because I always, that kind of thing always triggers something in my thinking, is the idea that there's deep, and then there's something, and then there's God something. No, there's not. There's something, and God's involved in that.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as there's deep and then deep with God. No, deep is deep, and deep with God is deep as well. Yeah. It's not. There's no separation of these things. So all of it works together. And I'm going to be preaching, and so I encourage anybody's interested in this kind of topic. Probably the next several Sundays. The series that I'm doing, I'm going to be dealing with the idea of depth, when it comes to the issue of Christianity, because a lot of people are very shallow in their thinking, of Christianity, and I'm going through. I called it the true gospel, and I'm going to be digging out the fundamentals of the gospel as we see them unfold through the story. So they may not necessarily be in an systematic order, having seen the whole thing from the beginning to the end, but I am going to be going through it as it unfolds within the Gospels, because it is right from the beginning very, very deep. The idea of God coming to the earth. Let's just start right there. I could have done a whole sermon just on that alone, of God coming to the earth. How deep is that? How deep is the fact that the God who created the universe and all that means and all that entails what does that mean? And to turn that into Jesus died on the cross for our sins is so shallow, so shallow thinking. This amazing event of God coming to the earth, and reducing it down to a formula, of that removes all reality. 100% removes reality and turns it into a formula that if I just accept that this is what happened, I get to go to heaven. There's nothing. I don't think it's physically possible to have a more shallow thought than that. I don't think there's a more shallow thought in all of life. I'm obviously, I don't have a million thoughts to choose from for that, but just in my own thinking, something so vast and amazing as God coming to the earth and becoming a man, and reducing that down to a formula that gets us into heaven is just so shallow, and so missing of the reality of what it all means.
Yeah.
So,
Very cool. Well, more to come, definitely. And as he said, we will have the services he's talking about. He's been preaching on Sunday mornings, and so we do encourage you to come and join a service and come, meet us in person. We'd love to meet you in person. We'll be here tomorrow for our midweek service. It starts at 7 o'clock, and we invite you to join us. We will be here again next week. You can find more episodes, you can find more podcasts, and you can find our sermons that we record and save on our YouTube page. Get more information about us on our website. If you're in the local Bay Area, we do encourage you to come and join us. Address and information will be on your screen in just a minute, and we'll see you guys next week.